Hello. It's Let's Talk Tuesday, so let's talk about inspiration porn. If you've never heard the phrase inspiration porn before, you're probably wondering what it could possibly mean. Inspiration is great. It's always a good thing, right? No, it isn't. If you've never checked out Stella Young's TED Talk on inspiration porn, I highly recommend it. I will link it for you here and in the description below. Inspiration porn refers to any narrative where a disabled person is spoken or written about as inspiring merely because of their disability, as well as narratives where a disabled person's autonomy is not respected or their dignity stripped away, and as well as narratives where able and neurotypical folks are praised for merely being decent to a disabled person. In short, it's objectifying and dehumanizing to disabled people. This can include social dialogue where a disability is acknowledged immediately with, "You're so inspiring," as though we are inspiring just for existing. Disabled people do not exist to inspire you. We are not here to be your Fitspo. We are not here to educate you. We are people living our own lives. We are not here to entertain you. We are not here for your consumption. We're not here to smile and motivate you. Our anger and our sadness is not to be responded to with, "The only disability in life is a bad attitude," just because any disabled person that is anything but motivational makes you uncomfortable. Stella said it best. No amount of smiling has ever turned a staircase into a ramp. Inspiration porn includes stories about an able person asking a disabled person to prom, or an able person hires a disabled person, an able person assists a disabled person, etc., and it makes headlines. Sometimes one's actions are not necessarily inspiration porn, but the way that it's presented and spoken about is the inspiration porn. I'm all for visibility, true visibility, that tells the stories of the disabled. So, in stories like Daniel, who was recently hired by Starbucks, instead of praising the manager for looking beyond the disability, that story should have inspired the conversation about why it was so hard for Daniel to find a job, to find job opportunities as a young autistic man. How do we combat disability discrimination in the workplace? Listen to the stories of disabled people and their experiences. Get their side of the story. Don't take images and videos and put them online without their consent. Don't accept mediocre acts of kindness as newsworthy just because it was an able person being kind to a disabled person. We don't tell these kind of stories in any other circumstance. And I'll check myself there, as this is something I internally debate myself about. Viral content is so varied, easily exemplified by the recent "Damn Daniel" meme. What on earth is that about? Why is that so shareable? So I fully admit it can be confusing to identify what counts as inspiration porn and what doesn't. And that's a good conversation to have, to ask ourselves, would this be a headline if it were an able-bodied person doing it? Are we getting the disabled person's perspective? Is this story created with the consent and approval of the disabled person? Is the story focused on the actions of the able-bodied person as admirable? And if they committed those actions to another able-bodied person, would it be a headline? But we have to be able to examine and acknowledge the loss of personhood in these stories. Like the story about the McDonald's employee that assisted a disabled man with feeding himself, who was then taken a picture of from behind, and the image spread throughout the internet, praising that employee as though he did some heroic deed, while having absolutely no consideration for the feelings of the man who was being assisted. Or the story about an autistic person who decorated a cake and the customer was praised for not getting angry, even though the harm was done by putting that image online and spreading it around. How do you think that person who decorated the cake felt when the world was praising this woman? You're such a great, kind, patient person for not getting angry at that disabled person. How would you feel if you were in vulnerable positions like these and someone documented it without your consent and spread it all over the internet? How would it feel to know that no one cared about your thoughts or feelings or what you had to say on the matter? How would you feel at the confrontation that the world does not see you as an autonomous, fully fleshed, multifaceted, multidimensional human being, but a burden? Someone that only angels and saints and heroes have the patience for. That tolerate you, that are willing to put up with you, hire you, take you to prom. That's why these stories suck. That's why they are inspiration porn. We need to call it out when it happens, so reporters start feeling the pressure to tell stories about disabled people in an authentic way, to give them the agency to their stories. They do this because it's what sells. Using disabled people to give consumers their emotional high, their inspiration. Be a part of the solution and don't tolerate the objectification and dehumanization of disabled people. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you all tomorrow, probably, in the next video. Bye.